One sec. Just wipe the sweat from out my eyeballs before we get into this. What's going on YouTube? It's day 2 of not having Instagram now, and I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to take you through some of my favorite accessory exercises for Olympic weightlifting. Now I program for a shitload of people worldwide, and one of the first questions they ask me is, Sonny, what accessory exercises are we doing? Now the first thing to consider is how much you're actually training, because in my opinion, if you're only snatching, clean and jerking or only training 3 times a week, then you don't really need to add in too much variation into your training program, because your time is actually better spent practicing the classical movements of the snatch and the clean and jerk, because they're the ones you actually want to get good at. However, if you do have a little bit more time, maybe say on a Saturday or one other day of the weeks when you want to stick in some accessory or an exercise after the classical movements, I'm going to take you through 3 exercises that are my favorite, that's going to help you improve the positions of the Olympic movements, but also help you stay strong and stable in them too. So the first one that we're going to look at now is the Snatch Sox Press. Now this is an extremely underrated exercise for developing strength stability in the bottom position of the snatch. Now, you could argue that the bottom position for the snatch is probably the most challenging movement in Olympic weightlifting by far. You're under load, you're in a very compromised position right in the bottom of the squat with a wide grip on the bar. So therefore, adding this in as an accessory exercise to develop strength and stability is going to be extremely valuable. Now, for a lot of people, when I show them this exercise, they go, Sonny, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that exercise. However, I'm going to show you progression that will allow you to slowly build yourself into this movement and eventually be able to do it right from the bottom position. First things first, and the key thing when you're doing this drill is making sure that when you grip the bar, you grip it in the exact same way you would do when you're snatching. So for me, I always use these marks on the bar. My grip is one finger outside the mark on the bar here. I've got arms like a T-Rex, so it's not extremely wide considering how tall I am. Now, next thing, you need to make sure that you're keeping a full grip on the bar when you're doing this exercise, because you imagine when you're overhead in the snatch, you don't want to be in your fingertips, so you don't want to practice this exercise in your fingertips. You want to make sure that you're setting your feet in your receiving position for the snatch. Now, the receiving position is where your feet would go when you're in the bottom position or the catch position for the snatch. So that's where I'm going to set my feet. I pull my elbows directly underneath the bar, I squeeze my buttocks, and I engage my core. So I'm in a nice neutral position here with my trunk. Now I really try and zone in and focus on pressing from underneath my armpits, okay? It's my lats that I want to be doing the work here and pushing into my overhead position. As I drive here, I hold in my locked out position, making sure the bar's over the crown of my head, and then I control the way back down to my traps. So this is the first progression that you need to master before you even worry about getting into the bottom position for your socks. Once you're comfortable working through this range, both eccentrically and concentrically, you're then going to go slightly out of lock and perform the same movement. Once you've mastered it from here and you're feeling the load in the quads as you're pressing, you're then ready to go right down into your bottom position and start pressing from here. Now you can see this is a comfortable position for me. I've been lifting a very long time and mobilizing a lot around my training, so I can sit here quite comfortably. But what I'm making sure that I'm doing is I'm keeping my knees out as far as I can over my toes so that I can sit nice and upright whilst maintaining a neutral position with my spine. What I don't want to see happening here is the lower back rounding out. So from here, I'm still focusing on elbows underneath the bar, keeping the lower body as still as possible, and then pressing into my overhead position. It's really important that you keep the lower body as still as possible when you're working through this range of motion. I generally would suggest working through 5 sets of 5 on a light load with this exercise. It's not a drill that you need to load up super heavy with, because ensuring that you control the range of motion whilst mobilizing that bottom position is far more beneficial, and it's going to carry over to you being much stronger in your receiving position for the snatch. Now we're going to move on and have a look at my second favorite accessory movement. So my second favorite exercise I use as accessory for my Olympic weightlifting is the good morning. Okay, this is a great exercise to develop strength in your posterior chain, which plays a massive part when you're Olympic weightlifting. So not only that, but for me, when we're Olympic weightlifting, we're very quad dominant and we don't get enough time isolating or strengthening necessarily the glutes or the hamstrings on their own. And with this exercise, the way I like to do it, it'll really hit those hammies. So the first thing I'm focusing on is creating tension conditioning my back by taking a nice grip, close grip on the bar and pulling the elbows back like so, all right? The bar is resting quite high. It's almost in a high bar position, certainly not a low bar position for me. However, some people do like to do the good mornings in a low bar position. But for me, I like to get it nice and high sitting up on my traps in the same position as I would do when I'm squatting, which means that it creates as much distance as possible between the bar, the loaded point, and my hips when I tip back into the good morning. Now, one consideration to remember is when you're doing a good morning, it'll have a massive impact on what muscle group it's hitting depending on how you set your feet. There's no right or wrong answer to this, and I always suggest with my athletes to play around with the position to see what feels best for them, okay? But for me, I'll start off with having a slight bit of foot width that's shoulder width apart. And I'll very slightly turn the toes in from here. Before I initiate the good morning, what I'll do is I'll bend my knees very slightly, so I'm just taking them out of lock. This will help you maintain a neutral spine as you go down into your bottom position. The second thing that I'll focus on to ensure that I maintain a flat position in my back is picking something to focus on that's at my eye level. I always find that when I'm working with an athlete and they don't pick something to focus on, what they'll do is they'll try and get as low as possible, and then you'll see that the lower back will start to round out here, which we don't really want to see. So what I do is I pick something at eye level, I squeeze my bum, I take the knee slightly out of lock, and then I'll push the bum back and throw the weight into the heels, and I'll stop at my point where I can't see that eye line point anymore, and then change direction. Now, there's two different types of good mornings that I like to do that are both beneficial. Sometimes I'll load the bar a little bit heavier and work nice and slowly, eccentrically and controlled through the range of motion. Other times I like to keep the weight light and go down slowly, but then explosively squeeze the bum and drive through to my top position. Okay, this carries over nicely to our Olympic weightlifting as well. So from here, knees slightly out of lock, shoot the bum back, down to the point where I can feel it now here, right in my hamstring, and I'm squeezing the bum and driving through to this top position. Just to give you an idea on load for this exercise, my heaviest weight that I'll ever work to when I'm doing a good morning will be about 120 kilos. So that's roughly 30% less than my best 1RM snatch as a kind of a guideline, and I would say I'm quite strong at this exercise. But what's really important is that you start light with this drill, get comfortable with the range of motion. If you're feeling it in the hamstrings, it will be doing something, it will be working, and you're gonna have some DOMs the following day. Start light, empty bar, 30, 40 kilos to begin with. Once you develop confidence with this range of motion, then you can start loading it. But like I've said, developing strength here in the hamstring is going to be perfect if you're an Olympic weightlifter to create good muscle balance, reduce risk of injury, although strengthen a really important muscle that we need when we're lifting. Right, so we're going to be looking at my third and final, but arguably the most underrated accessory movement for Olympic weightlifting, which is the pull. Now, there's lots of different variation of pull that you can do. There's the high pull, there's the dead pull, there's the pull to knee, there's the deficit pull, amongst many others, all right? But that's for another video. I just want to show you the most common one that's used to develop strength in the first phase of the lift, but not only that, consistency in the first pull from the floor. Now, a lot of people get this exercise wrong because they mistake it for a deadlift. However, the pull is an explosive movement, which is very much like the first phase of the Olympic lift. The reason why this is so important is because if the first phase of the lift goes wrong, you go out of position, or the weight's in the wrong part of the body, it will cause a chain reaction of shit to happen in the rest of the lift. So I'm going to show you how to execute a pull correctly, and if you start utilizing this in your training, you're going to find a much more consistent snatch, as well as having better discipline in the first phase of the lift. Now, I always use straps when I'm doing the pulling exercise. Big Fry Supplies ones in particular, you can get them at www.bigfrysupplies.com. However, the reason why I'm using the strap is to ensure that my arms stay relaxed when doing this exercise. I would say again, this is a very common mistake that people make, is they don't use straps when they pull, and then they've got the wrong muscles doing the work. The upper body is working instead of the legs, instead of the posterior chain, which if you're a more experienced weightlifter, the pulling exercise will be a drill that you'll do to develop strength, and you certainly don't want to be developing strength in the upper body, you want it in the posterior chain. However, for a beginner, using straps will allow you to keep your arms relaxed and execute good technique, so it's valuable either way. Now, the way in which I put my straps on is, these ones in particular have a left and a right. It allows me to put them on the correct way, okay, which I wrap the barb underneath the bar, like so, and re-grip. We'll do this on both sides. please make sure when you're doing this that you make sure you use the exact same grip as you would do when you're snatching, okay? Now, the key thing is that we're getting the exact same setup position as we would do when we're lifting. So with knees and arms in line, arms are hanging loose, shoulders go back and down, and I just remind myself when I've got the strap on here to keep the arms relaxed. I then think about pushing the floor away with the legs, keeping my control and discipline in this phase, and then when I get to mid-thigh, accelerating through that middle phase of the lift. So as you can see, I'm now ingraining good movement in my first phase off the floor, maintaining a consistent angle at the back, and then practicing attacking in this top position. Now, one thing that I want to mention that I know you'll be thinking right now is how high should I be pulling the bar? Now, it's important that when you're snatch pulling, you don't pull any higher than your top abdominal muscle. That's as high as you'll be able to get in a good position, and that's as high as you need to get the bar in order to go down into your catch position. I'll show you what I mean by that now, okay? So, when I'm snatching, okay, if I just do a snatch for you now, and I go into my catch position, okay, you'll see that this is as high as I need to get the bar in order to receive it. So therefore, take a screenshot now, click. When I'm doing my pull, I need to get the bar that high when I'm practicing the pulling movement. Do you get me? Same applies for a clean. I'm not gonna do a clean with straps because you never do a clean with straps, but I'm gonna show you position here, optimal height that I need to pull the bar in order to get in my catch position. Therefore, when I'm doing my pull, and we look at the height that I need to get it to, the right position for this is just up to my belly button. Now, final tip and thing that I want you to make sure when you're doing this accessory exercise of the pull is to make sure that when you strike with the legs that you keep the arms relaxed. The thing that's accelerating the bar is the leg kick, not the arms. You want it to feel very weightless after you struck with the legs there at the top position, because this was what will allow you to move quickly underneath the bar. So that was 3 of my favorite accessory exercises that will help you improve your Olympic weightlifting if you have the time to add variation. But don't forget what I said at the start of this video. If you're short on time, make sure you're spending your time on the classical lifts. It's the most important thing if you want to develop consistent movement patterns with the lifts that you actually want to get better at. If you need further help with your Olympic lifts, don't forget to stick in the comments any other videos that you'd like me to create, or if you want to work with me personally, you can head to theliftingzone.com and apply to work with me one-on-one and get a custom training program made for you. Guys, don't forget at the very least, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.